Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Joe Buskins. This is our family's boat shop, and this is episode 14 of our project boat rebuild. Last episode, as a brief recap, we were able to fiberglass over our Coosa board, which is going to be a rot-free permanent replacement for this boat and a major upgrade. But we're getting ready to move forward into putting our floor down and adding on to our stringers here, which we had to notch off. We had a little bit of rot back there. But getting the fuel tank out is going to be important. Now, I've done some of the preliminary work to save you folks some of the time that it might take to show the whole process. Had about 30 gallons on there. But what I did is I just rigged up a priming bulb into a gas tank. We went through our drain plug, and then I was able just to use the barb on the tank, and gravity will feed it. Once you get a few pumps on there, the fuel will start to flow, and it'll just gravity feed out of there. So that's kind of an easy way to get the fuel out of the boat. But we've already gotten the vast majority of it. So I'm gonna pull the hose and remove that. Now, one of the other things that's important is to kind of document where everything is before you go to ripping stuff out. So take pictures with your phone, document it with a camera, maybe even a little notebook taking measurements. And that's what we've done here. Just take a tape measure, and I kind of want to know what the distance is of this fuel tank. We got 25 inches. I did put a mark on the bulkheads, and I also wrote 25 inches on our fuel tank there so that we know where to put this thing back. Sometimes people tear stuff up and they don't know how to put it back together, so that is very important. Man, I hear a big helicopter. Big helicopter. We're not terribly far from a pretty major military base, and we get to hear and see a lot of, pretty close to the home of the Blue Angels. I wonder if any of you folks out there have ever seen or been to a Blue Angels air show. We get to see them out in the Gulf a lot when we're out there fishing. Be sure to comment if you have ever been to a Blue Angels air show or ever seen them perform pretty amazing stuff. That's one of the perks sometimes when we're out on a fishing charter. They will really let it rip sometimes when they're out over the open Gulf. Get a free air show. All right, hard to beat just a good old-fashioned crowbar sometimes. Now, one other thing we did do is there were some brackets on the side of this fuel tank, and I went ahead and pulled the screws out of them. And sometimes you kind of just have to walk these things out, pry a little bit on one side, pry a little bit on the other. It's a pretty snug fit there. Sometimes the answer is a bigger crowbar. Yeah. Sometimes it's just going to take a little bit of making a little progress. Usually once you get it moving, you can put some blocks of wood here to get a little more. There we go. Foam was giving way. Now, I've actually seen folks use a power washer, and I've never actually done it myself. But if you have a tank that's foamed in, sometimes you can take a power washer and actually blast the foam kind of away. It kind of breaks it up in little pieces and makes it so that you can get the... All right, just like that, folks. That little part of the boat has not seen daylight in a long time. pretty nasty. These plastic tanks are actually quite good. A lot of people think they're less than maybe an aluminum tank, but in my experience, they last a very long time, especially in salt water. It's not a disadvantage to have. The only disadvantage is that you can't get them in custom sizes. So a lot of times you kind of got to find one that'll fit your space and just make it work. But they don't have to you don't have to worry about corrosion or seams popping or anything like that. So don't be afraid to use a plastic fuel tank. That one is, you're going on 25 or 30 years old though, and it would just be kind of crazy to not go ahead and replace the fuel tank on a project like this. They do degrade a little over time, but on average, they last longer than a lot of your aluminum fuel tanks. I had to sit down and catch my breath, y'all. Getting old and out of shape. It's terrible. It's terrible. So the other day, one thing I did as well is we used a combination of tools. We used our little fine oscillating little multi-tool there that we used a carbide. It's more like a tile and grout bit there, and you folks that are in construction probably know what I'm talking about. And it was really, really good for doing little detail work. Maybe my cameraman can zip over here. So like in these real tight corners, I use that to kind of go ahead and get a start. But the main tool you're going to use for this kind of demolition is going to be a Sawzall. That's a Lennox. You're going to want a good demolition blade or a bimetal or a carbide blade, and you can kind of lay this thing. It's almost like filleting a fish. You can lay that right along the edge, and just be careful when you're working with it. You want to cut shallow. You don't want to go too deep, because you can accidentally go right through the boat, and that is not a good thing. I've seen that done before, and that's just going to have to be something else you're going to fix or have to fix. All right, I know floor replacements, transom replacements, but again, you're basically going to lay this blade right along the side and just cut right on down. Now, it took me about an hour and a half, and not a bad idea to have a shop vac running. The other day while I was cutting this, I was just running the vac and kind of moving it along as I was cutting this out. But all right, let's see here. Maybe a crowbar again, or a hammer and a chisel can be a pretty effective way of. There we go. My dad used to say, it'll fit. You just got to get a bigger hammer, or if you get it going fast enough, it'll fit. So sometimes a little bit of momentum or velocity, it's amazing. Good way to get your frustrations out as well. There, folks. A little bit of boat demolition for sure. Just be careful. You're gonna want to wear some gloves. Yeah. Yep. Ugh. All right, to the landfill we go. All right, maybe Logan can show up here. I went ahead and did the same thing. I had to be real careful up here though, because there's not much of a space between where you're cutting, so I did leave a pretty sizable flange. But I would say that floor is 100% gone. Now, we did the Coosa board, which, you know, growing up around a boat shop or working in a boat shop full time and being a professional boat builder, a lot of the terminology we use is everyday to me. But if you're a DIYer or kind of just your first project, it was brought to my attention by one of my buddies, actually, that if he didn't know me, he would have never heard the word Coosa, or Coosa board. But there are other synthetic panels you can use, and obviously plywood is one of the more popular ways to put a floor back. And I'm kind of actually debating on this boat. Coosa is fantastic, but it's a little more expensive than marine plywood. But I could potentially just go back with marine plywood. So that is another thing I'd be curious to know, you folks at home. Do you think I should go back with marine plywood? Would that be more helpful for you guys as far as information, since you've already seen some Coosa work? Or do you think it'd be cool to go ahead with a synthetic plywood replacement like Coosa board for the entire floor. So just be sure to comment below. Let me know. I try real hard to read all those and respond to as many as I can. You can see when I was cutting this out, I did kind of break that up in a couple pieces. It's a little more manageable. And we're going to come back with a grinder and do the detail work. There's a pretty good amount of glass on the edge though. Look how thick that is as a reference. That's probably close to 3/8 of an inch of fiberglass right there on the edge. All right. That can go in the garbage pile. All right. Well, that is good to see what we're working with. Now, one of the other things I did the other day, you folks might notice there's some stress cracks. You can see where somebody's come up against the dock and hit it, and you can see these radiating cracks. And I think what I'm going to do is actually reinforce this rolled edge a bit. Maybe sand all the old Gelcoat off and actually wrap some additional fiberglass on there. But to do that, we had to take the rub rail off. And again, you can see I've already made some progress. But I wanted to show you folks, again, if you've never done this kind of work, maybe a bit of a mystery. You're like, how do you even remove a rub rail? But most rub rails have a round insert, just like this. And it just starts on the back corner, and it's usually one continuous piece all the way around. So it's a simple matter of just getting started on one end and kind of working it out. And that's going to give you access to the fasteners. Now, when we were building our 29 there in the background, we used machine screws and stainless steel lock nuts in lieu of pop rivets. But pop rivets are very common, and the solution to getting those out is typically going to be somewhere to the tune of a 1/4 inch or a 5/16 drill bit. And you're just gonna basically find a pop rivet you want out, and you drill off the head. Drill the head off right there. That one's kind of broken down. Now I just noticed there is someone put a sheetrock. I don't know if you guys and gals at home can see that. There is a sheetrock screw in there, and sheetrock screws are not going to be marine grade, not even close to being marine grade. You're going to want to use stainless steel if you're ever going to use something like that. I did the whole rub rail without any screws, any sheetrock screws, and now the section I saved for you folks has them. But that might be good just to know. Obviously the owners of this boat, someone who's owned this boat previously did that. That is not going to be a factory type deal. That's kind of a no-brainer. Obviously we try to show you folks at home more technical stuff. I would hope you could figure out how to get a sheetrock screw out if need be. But again, just drill the head off of that rivet. All right, and once those heads are off of there, it'll pretty much just pop right out. And then usually you can take something like a screwdriver or a punch and just push them right back through. Now we may or may not go back with pop rivets. I'm not a huge fan of them personally. Your machine screws with stainless steel lock nuts are going to do a lot better job of just cinching the rub rail down and not over tightening it. And that's what we've done on all the boats we've ever built in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taking that off. We're going to get ready to do some grinding, but now is a good time to tell you folks, thumbs up, like, share, comment. If you want to see us do more of this kind of stuff, your support at home really helps us do it. So we're going to get ready to do some grinding, so y'all hang tight. All right, everybody, so we have pulled the blazer bay out around the back side of the shop because we're fixing to do a whole bunch of grinding. And we, for obvious reasons, we don't want to be doing that grinding inside the shop where we work every day. And we've got our 29 footer. So I would recommend the same for you folks. If you're going to do a bunch of grinding, try to pull the boat out away from civilization as it will. And you can see again, we have got everything removed out of the boat, and we've got some standard fare for doing this kind of work. Now, I like that Festool that we were using earlier, but it is hard to beat a little DeWalt high-speed angle grinder with a very aggressive grit. We're running some 24 grit discs on this thing. That is kind of our go-to heavy material removal sander. And then some good protective gear. I found that Mechanics makes these kind of inexpensive, like a painting glove, that work really good. You're going to want a spray sock that's going to go over your head, and then 3M makes this really nice full face respirator that for heavy grinding like we're doing today, it is really, really hard to beat. The goal is to have all of our surfaces look a lot like what we've got going on here, but I've got the whole parameter of the boat, so I've got my work cut out for me. All right, we have put our little DeWalt grinder to work over the last day or so. We have covered the whole interior from bow to stern. We've even done some cleanup here on top of our stringer beds, but we've sanded where we got a nice gradual profile rather than a hard lip or edge, and I've gone down to solid fiberglass all the way around. Really got some good surface prep going on. That's going to be very important to get all the old busted glass, everything that might keep fiberglass from sticking, folks. I generally prefer the Gelcoat to be gone if possible, but that was a nasty, dirty job, and honestly, it makes a lot of dust. It's not dust that you want to breathe. PPE is going to be really, really important when you're doing that kind of stuff. Again, I can't overemphasize Tyvek suit, good full face respirator. We'll be sure to put a link below. Everything as far as like what we used in the process of doing this. So it's going to be a fairly short episode here. Demolition is not highly technical. Most people can kind of figure it out. If y'all are enjoying the content we're doing, please remember to give us a thumbs up, like, share, comment. Tell a friend. If we keep doing this, the channel needs to grow for us to continue to put the effort into making these videos, and with y'all's support, we can do it. Captain Joe, Fish Bump TV, my son Logan is my amazing cameraman working hard behind the scenes, and we will see you folks in the next episode.